What we have here is a pretty straightforward derivative problem. They want us to take this equation, f of x equals the square root of x plus 3 over the square root of x, and they want us to find the derivative at this specific x value here. They want us to find f prime of 9. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by finding our derivative, and then at the end of that process, we'll just go ahead and plug in 9 everywhere we see an x. The first thing you need to do before you rush in to take any derivative, any antiderivative later on in calculus, is you need to look out for a handful of rewrites. And so what we're looking at on this one is actually going to use the two main rewrites that you always want to be on the lookout for. The first one is anytime you've got a root in a problem, anytime you've got a radical, x to some power inside a root, you want to rewrite this as a fraction, x to the power over root. Remember, we've got a power rule, so we want to rewrite everything as a power rule. So we'll start off and do that first rewrite since both pieces of our problem here have it. So there's an unwritten 1 for our power on that x and an unwritten 2 for the root. And the same thing here, an unwritten 1 for the power and an unwritten 2 for the root. So the first thing we would do is rewrite this as x to the power of 1 over the root of 2 plus 3, and then on the bottom here this is x to the power of 1 over the root of 2. Now we're looking for the second big rewrite here. So the second rewrite you always want to be on the lookout for is anytime you've got a number over x to a power, you want to rewrite that by bringing the x up from the bottom to the top and making that power negative. So if you had something like 5 over x to the third, you'd want to rewrite that as 5x to the negative 3. And so that's happening here on our second piece. We have an x on bottom and we need to bring that up to the top. So we'll perform our second rewrite here. This is x to the 1/2 plus 3x to the negative 1/2. So we did one rewrite, a second rewrite, and now we're ready to go ahead and take our derivative. So we come back through and we follow our power rule as we come through here. So the power rule, saying that I use, just goes bring the power down and then subtract 1 from the power. So we'll perform that power rule on both pieces. We're going to bring this 1/2 down. We get 1/2 x, subtracting 1 from the power. 1/2 minus 1 is going to get us negative 1/2. Plus, and then again, bring the power down. We bring down the negative 1/2 times 3 is actually going to give us negative 3/2 x. And then subtracting 1 from the power, negative 1/2 minus 1 is going to get us negative 3/2. So now we've got our derivative. Now we need to come through and we're going to go ahead and plug 9 in everywhere we see an x. Before we do that, though, again, it's always good to do your rewrites ahead of the actual work. And so what I always tell people is negative exponents are great for doing calculus. They are horrible for doing algebra. So as we start to go through our algebra process right now, we're going to kind of come through this and undo all the rewrites that we just did. So the first thing we would want to do is both of these are negative exponents. So essentially what's happening is we're starting here with our negative exponents and we want to put this back down to the bottom to make that power positive again. So this is going to become 1 over 2x to the 1/2, putting that down to the bottom, minus 3 over, and then this would be 2x to the 3/2. And then the next thing you want to do to kind of help yourself see how to do the algebra on this is to undo this power over root move and turn these back into roots and powers so that you can see what to do when you plug a number into these. So we'll do that move here. So on the bottom now, we end up with 1 over 2, and then this is power of 1, root of 2, so this is the square root of x, minus 3 over 2, power of 3 root of 2. So this is going to be the square root of x cubed. And now we're going to come through and actually finally plug in the value that they were looking for from us here. So we have f prime, and we're going to be plugging in 9. So f prime of 9 equals, and everywhere we see a 9 over here, we're going to be plugging in our value, or everywhere we see an x, we're going to be plugging in our value of 9. So 1 over 2 square root of 9 minus 3 over 2 square root of, and then this would be 9 to the third. So as you come to do this right now, you've got no calculator, which is fine for the first one because you end up with 1 over 2 and the square root of 9 is 3. Then you come over to this next one and you're like, oh my goodness, do I really want to cube this 9 and then try to take the square root of it? Well, the beautiful thing about this is you really can kind of rewrite it. The power of the root can be on the inside or the outside. So what I would be doing in this is I would say, okay, I've got 2 square root of 9 and then that to the third. So you can kind of do them in whichever order you want. You can do the root first or you can do the power first. And in this situation, I think doing the root first would make our lives easier. So we'll keep cleaning up the front here. This is going to end up being 1/6 minus, and then on this one we would have 3 over 2. The square root of 9 now, that would be 3, and then 3 to the third. That's a bit more manageable. 3 to the third is much easier than taking 9 to the third and then trying to root that. So we keep working through this. It's just little bits of algebra at a time, wishing you had a calculator to get it done in 2 seconds, but you don't. So then this is 3, and then 3 to the third is 27, and 27 times 2 is going to get us 54. Now we're just down to an addition and subtraction of fractions problem, and in order to do that, we need to find a common denominator. So this scenario, 54 would be our common denominator, so I would multiply this 6 by 9 to make it 54. Whatever I do to the bottom, I've got to do to the top. So I end up with 9 over 54 minus 3 over 54. Now I've got a common denominator, so now I can just subtract the top. 9 minus 3 is going to get me 6 over 54. And then from there, you can reduce that. I can pull a 6 out of everybody. So I pull a 6 out of the top. That's going to leave me with a 1. I pull a 6 out of the bottom. That's going to leave me with a 9. So I end up with 1/9, which matches option C. So sometimes on these problems, the derivative is pretty straightforward. That derivative kind of ended all the way back here, right? And the rest of this stuff was all a bunch of algebra to get to your final answer. So not too bad on the derivative. Make sure you got your algebra skills on lockdown. Thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, please click that like button and subscribe. And also share it with your friends and anyone else you know who might be crying about an upcoming AP Calc test. You can find more videos from me, more sample AP Calc questions, and my complete AP Calc study guide over at my website, apcalcprep.com. Have a great one.